I want to talk a bit about how to use tabs in Word. Tabs are used to create tables, and I'll explain how to do that in just a second. One way you can create a table is to actually create something called a table and not use tabs at all. I like to do this. It's a quick and easy way of doing this, and I think sometimes even simpler than tabs. Let me show you what I mean by that. If I go to my Home tab here, and I want to create, let's say, a list of some pets that I may own or that some people may own. I might want to go to Insert, and I could insert a table. I could choose the size of the table, how many rows and how many columns. So, for example, I could do something like this. That would be 3 columns and 4 rows. Click on that, and then I could put in like pet name. I could tab over and put breed, and then I could put in something like location. So, for example, if I have a pet named Rover, who's a terrier, misspelled terrier, and that dog lives in Beaumont, do something like that. And I could have a dog named Felix, who is a cat who lives in Port Arthur. Just a quick example of how you could create data and put it in a table. Now, we could do it another way. So I'm going to come down here below, and I'm going to show you how we can do this with tabs. All right. So I want to put the same information in. So I'm going to go ahead and put pet name. And then what I want to do is move over and put in the breeds. For a moment, I'm going to press the tab key, and that moves me over, and I can type in breed. And then I can press the tab key, and I can type in location. Then I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to type in the name of the first pet, Rover, tab again. Now, it didn't move me as far when I pressed tab, because it only moves a certain distance or to a certain point. We call that the tab stop. And by default, they're each one at a ½ inch. So notice it moved over to the next ½ inch mark. You see the ruler here at the top? So when I press tab at the end of Rover, it moved me to this one. So to get it over to line up at the 1 inch mark, I would have to press tab again. So here I could type in Rover is a terrier and press tab again, and notice it will move me to this ½ inch mark, and so he lives in Beaumont. Okay, and I'm going to press enter again, and I'm going to type in Felix. Felix is I pressed tab, but it didn't move me but to the next half mark. Press tab again, and I'll type in cat. I press tab again, and that cat's in Port Arthur. So that's a quick way of looking at how we could do this same information, but we put it using tabs. Tab is short for tabular. So we've got tabular data, table data table, easy for me to say, right here, and we've got table data is here as well. Both of them work well. Both of these, using a word table works fine, and using tabs works fine. Let's delve a little more into tabs. It's very commonly used, so it's something important that you should know. If you noticed, the reason I only pressed the tab once when I was through typing pet name was I was already past the 1/2 inch. So it didn't move me to that. It moved to the nearest 1/2 inch. But Rover, when I was at the end of Rover and I pressed tab, it moved me to here because the word Rover was not as long as the words pet name. So now I'd like to show you how you can start changing the tab stops. The tab stop simply is where the tab stops when you press the tab key. To do this, I'm going to highlight all of these paragraphs. So these are actually 3 different paragraphs because I pressed the enter key at the end of each one. I'm going to go up to paragraph group, and I'm going to go down to tabs. Now I can set tab positions. Right now the default is every ½ inch. Every time I press the tab key, it moved over a ½ inch, right? But I can actually set up customized tab stops. So for example, I want a left tab stop, meaning these will line up to the left, and I want to put it at a particular position. So let's say I want to put it at the 1 inch position. I'll type 1, and then this will be a 1 inch left tab with no leader. We'll talk about that in a second. And I click set, and now that tab stop is set at 1. If I want to do another one, I'll type that in here. Let's say I want to set one at 2. So I type 2 here. Again, it's I'm going to be left aligned, and then I click set. So now I've got 2 tab stops. Let's say I want to add another one. I'm going to type in 3 here. And again, I'm going to come down here and click set, and it will create a left aligned tab stop at the 3-inch mark, and it will not have a leader. So I'm going to click set again, and I'm going to click OK. Now notice what happened to this information that I had down here. The Terrier moved over to this point, and the Beaumont moved over to this point. Not really exactly what I wanted, but taking a look down here, this is what I had selected, and these are showing the tab stops that I have now set for that set of paragraphs. So what I could do, if you recall, I pressed the tab twice between Rover and Terrier when I was setting this up. And I pressed the tab key twice here, but I only pressed it once here. So now it's using, instead of the default tab stops, it's using these customized tab stops that I inserted. So pet name, I typed it in and I pressed tab, and so it has moved to the first tab stop. And then I typed in breed and I pressed tab, and it moved to the second tab stop. So what I really need to do down here, when I was typing Rover before, I typed Rover, I pressed tab, which would have moved it to this tab stop, but then I pressed tab again, which moved it to this tab stop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here to where it says Terrier. I'm going to click in there. I'm going to backspace, which will delete one of the tab key presses that I pressed. So you can see how that moved that back up. I can do the same thing here with cat, because remember, I pressed the tab key twice when I was typing this in. So I'm going to backspace, and that will knock out one of those tab key presses. So now I've got my table data, and it looks pretty good right now. But I want to show you that one of the main reasons you would use tab stops. I can highlight these paragraphs again, and look how easily I can change where the tabs go. So, for example, I can move this over to the left or to the right. And do that with the Control Z. I can move this over left or right to set a different place, a different location for this. So I can move that one over to that point. I can then come to the second tab stop that I set. I can move it here, and I can move it here. For example, I don't have a fourth tab, but so I can quickly and easily change the location of this. Now I can do the same thing by coming up here as how I set the tabs originally, by clicking here, going down the tabs, and notice that each one of these tab stops that I set earlier have now changed because I drugged them up here on the ruler. I really like dragging on the ruler rather than trying to set the tabs here most of the time, because it's much more visual. But many people prefer to come in here and actually set tabs at a particular point. Like they know they want it to be at 1 inch or 1.5 inches or 4 inches, so they go in here and they can get that precisely quickly. But I generally just use the ruler up here. So I'm going to show you one more time, but this time instead of using the tab stops by coming to the paragraph group, instead I'm going to do this by just using the ruler. Okay? So if I was going to create, I'm going to come down here in my document just a little further, and I'm going to recreate the data again. So this is what I would do. At this point, notice the ruler has the tab settings that I've already got. If I highlight this paragraph, that's the paragraphs that I'm going to have those particular tab settings. Now, any additional text that I type in, it will keep this as the tab stop settings. But I could set some new tab stop settings. In fact, I'm going to get rid of my tab stops, my custom tab stops that I have in here. I don't have these highlighted, so it won't affect this area, but it will affect what I'm going to type in now. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these by just clicking on them and dragging them off of the ruler. I'm just clicking on them and dragging them off. For me, that wasn't real intuitive when I first started with Word, and I had to look up how to do that, how to get rid of tab stops. So I'm going to move down a little bit here, and notice there's no tab stop sets. I'm going to go ahead and set up some tab stops. So notice this, it looks like an L, but it's really a left bracket. This is where you can change the type of tab. So if I click on this successively different things will come up. For example, this is a decimal tab. But if I keep clicking on this, eventually it'll come back around to a left tab. Okay, which is what I want to start with. So I'm going to set a left tab. Let's do one at 1.5. So I'm going to click right here on the ruler, and notice it put that little left bracket looking thing there at 1.5 inches. And I'm going to come in and let's say at 3.5, I'm going to set another left tab. And then let's say at 5, I'm going to set another left tab. Okay, now how I can use that, now that I have these tab stops set, I can type in pet name, and then I'm going to press the tab key once, and it should take me to this point where I have the tab stop set. Tab, and it moved me there. So the breed, and I'm going to press the tab key again, it should take me to this tab stop. And so it does the location. And I'm going to press enter, which creates a new paragraph. I'm going to type Rover. I'm going to press the tab key, and it should take me to this tab stop again. And I'm going to type Terrier. Press the tab key, and I'm going to put Beaumont. I'm going to press enter to end the paragraph. I'm going to type in Felix. Press tab. I'm going to type in cat. Press tab. I'm going to type in Port Arthur. And I've pretty much done. So this is a really handy way to create tables. And again, I can move these really easily on the ruler. Now let me just show you. I didn't mean to do this, but it's a good teaching moment. Notice I'm moving the tab stop, but it's only moving the cat. That's because that is the paragraph that I'm in right now. I only selected the cat paragraph, so I'm only changing the tab for that one paragraph. If I want to change the tabs for all of these, I need to select all of the paragraphs to which this will apply. So now this will work a little better. I can move that over. It's applying this to all of the paragraphs that I have selected. One other thing you might want to do, you might want to change the spacing in here. For example, you might want one single spacing, which I already have, but I want to remove the space after or before the paragraphs, because each one of these are paragraphs. And so I'm going to remove the space after the paragraph, and notice how it looks a lot better in here. The next thing I want to teach you is how to change different tab stops for different purposes, the alignment of the tab stops, I should say. So for example, in this, what I've got here, I've got these items down here in my table, but what I might want to do is, let's say this is an online listing for pet sales, and we're selling maybe these animals, so we want to know the cost. Well, what I might want to do is add a tab stop in here and add the cost of this. So let's just say I want to do that. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add another. I'm going to select all of the paragraphs so that I can do this. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to add a tab stop here. Now by default it'll be left align. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to click right here, and now I've got a tab stop set. So I'm going to come down to the end of this, and I'm going to press tab. I'm going to put cost here, and it lined it up to the left of this. I'm going to put in Beaumont the cost for Rover is going to be $300 and 47 cents a year. Oh, I didn't type that very well. Let's try it again. Okay, and then I'm going to click on Port Arthur, and I'm going to press tab again. And I'm going to say the cost to maintain this cat Felix. Let's say cats are pretty expensive, so I'm going to say that's $567.33. Okay, so I've got these, but if you look at it, really most of the time we take numbers and we line them up to the right, right? So I might want to put in a right alignment tab here instead of a left align. So what I'm going to actually do, I'm just going to drag this off. Oops, sorry, I'm going to do Control Z to undo that. I'm going to highlight the table that I have here, and I'm going to now drag this off. Okay, so I no longer have a tab stop set there. I'm going to come over here and change the tab stop to the right looking bracket, and I'm going to put it in here, and let's just say around 6 inches. Now let's make it 5.5. And notice that all of these are lined up to the right now. the word cost is lined up to the right rather than before it was lined up to the left. This is pretty handy because as I type some numbers, you'll see that even if I type different length numbers, they will line up to the right. So I'm going to press enter again, and I'm going to say I've got another animal called Hannah, and Hannah is a collie, let's just say. I'm going to press tab again, and Hannah's located in Port Neches. I'm going to press tab again. Now, Hannah is a low maintenance dog, so the cost to keep up Hannah over the years, food and all that, is not going to be very much. So I'm just going to say Hannah is going to cost me $50.40. Notice as I type, watch that again. It's lined up to the right. I'm going to say that's 50. Notice it's still staying up to the right, and it's actually typing the numbers in and moving them to the left. $50 and what was it, 97 cents? So it lines up to the right. Now, there's one other type that's kind of handy, a tab stop that's kind of handy. Let me highlight all this again, and I'll show you one that will actually, it's called decimal align, and I like to use it. Let me move this. I'm gonna delete this one again by dragging it off. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to change the type. Oop, I just went past it. There it is, decimal line, and it's a decimal tab. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here again to around 5.5, and I clicked and I added this type of tab stop. And notice it doesn't change very much, except the word cost is centered around it, is actually centered at this 5.5 mark. But the numbers don't look like they changed. But where this would be handy is if you didn't have numbers that had an equal number of decimal places. Now, of course, in most dollars and cents, you would have dollars and you would have cents, and the cents would be 2 decimal places. But let's just say that, for example, you didn't have any cents on Hannah's cost. So notice that it still stayed where it was, aligned around the decimal point. That's what this means. It will line up your data around the decimal point. And even if I have longer decimals, like let's say, this is kind of weird, but I've got Felix a cat, the cost to maintain Felix a cat is $567.33.454. But anyway, that's kind of weird. You wouldn't do that. But the point is, it lines up this data around a decimal point, which might be kind of handy. Last thing I want to talk about is how we can set different types of leaders for our tabs. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to highlight all of this table that I've got created. I'm going to go back up here to Home. I'm going to go to the paragraph group. I'm going to go down to tabs. And notice all of the tabs that I've got set are all listed here, right? So, and none of them have leaders. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on one of these. I'm going to select the one at 1 inch, 1.94 inches, and I'm going to change it to another type of leader. This is called a dot leader right here. So I'm going to change it from none to a dot leader, and watch what's going to happen down here. Oh, I've got to click OK. And notice it inserts dots between pet name and breed. Dot leaders are used quite a bit if you have data that goes wide across the page, because sometimes the eye is hard to follow over to the corresponding element if it's separated pretty far. So, for example, if you had a program for a play, and you had the list of the actors' names on the left-hand side and who was playing the part listed on the right-hand side, you might put dot leaders so that the eye can easily flow from here across to the corresponding person that should be associated with. So that's what we use dot leaders for. If I want to put a dot leader, let's say, between these two, the breed and location, again, I can select the whole all the paragraphs. I can go to the paragraph tabs, and I have to select the tab stop. So in other words, this tab stop is set at 3.88 inches. This one right here, you can see it right here is visual. I can select it by clicking on it, and then I can change it to a different type of tab. Make sense? Now, some people make the mistake of just trying to type in a bunch of dots here, and that's going to defeat the whole purpose, because then you can't easily change these and move things around. You would have to delete manually each of the dots, which is a real pain. So get to where you can use some of these leaders that would be part of your tab stops. Don't use them just capriciously, but wherever you need them, if it looks better and helps the viewer to interpret the data better, then by all means put them in.